Now. Yes. Good morning. So, we're good to go. I've never I never get used to this. I always get the same room. I was kind of hoping I could get another one. Not like I really respect having every one of you just next to my face, but it's more of the problem that I walk around all the time. I can't stay put when I'm speaking, and these lights blindfold me totally, which means that I'm honestly scared to death of falling off the stage, which is usually not an issue, but here it is. So, why are we here? We're here to hear about a session called 10 Really Important Things About Windows 10. I have no idea if there's actually 10 because I've changed the slides so many times that I haven't even counted if there's 10. But I'm going to go through what I think will actually change some things and change how we operate with the operating system itself. My name is Sami Laiho. I'm from Finland. They mentioned something on the keynote about Finland trying out if everyone in Finland should be given the same amount of money, like a basic income. I've never heard about it, but maybe there is such an experiment going on. But anyway, is there anyone from Finland? No. I'm like trying my best, honestly. I tried for like 2 years to get them understand that they should be here, but for some reason they're sticking to their own place and not leaving outside of the country still. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I've been teaching for about 15 years. I travel 200 days a year currently. Just came in from Switzerland yesterday. I'm speaking and teaching anything related to the operating system security and mainly troubleshooting and security and Windows internals. I've always started all my sessions by teaching my listeners a few words in Finnish. Now I'm starting something else. So I couldn't come up with anything to teach you this time like I did last year about the language. Maybe I'll do that on the next session, but I thought that maybe I'll spend some time to teach you a little bit how to behave in Finland. So if you've ever heard about us, we're kind of famous for our well, someone might call it privacy and some might call it rudeness. I don't know which it should be called, but I can't help myself. I had to take this picture from Helsinki. About 2 weeks ago we had a huge snowstorm in Helsinki and almost everything stopped in the city. And I was driving past a bus stop and I had to get the picture because I think this describes how Finnish people are so nicely. There's a huge, gigantic snowstorm, and the bus stop looks like this. Like you need to keep your space, okay? Do not go close to people. There's probably like some foreigners that are under the shelter. But you keep your 1 meter. Do not go closer, okay? That's almost as bad as looking into someone's eyes when you're talking to them. I'm also starting to learn a little bit more about Norway because I'm here. So luckily the second most watched TV series now in Finland is the documentary about Norway. It's all Finnish people now know and we feel for you. It's really sad to hear that you were invaded by Russia. We've been there, done that, bought a t-shirt, so we know. Okay, so usually when people start to talk about Windows 10, the things that they talk about are things like the new start menu. How amazing it is to get a new start menu for Windows. I'm trying to show you this because these are not the stuff that we're going to talk about today. I don't care about the start menu. Well, I can't say I don't care. I like the way they changed it. So no offense, I think it's better. What I'm kind of amazed about is the fact that Microsoft actually had one of the most given feedback on user voice, which is used to collect feedback from people about Windows 10. One of the biggest complaints was that the start menu could only include 512 objects. You couldn't have more. So they put all the effort and skipped on not so important stuff and focused on this, and now they fixed it. Now you can have 2048 things in your start menu. Honestly, I don't even use the start menu at all. I only search through it. That's the only thing I do. So I don't really care. Virtual desktops. Windows 10 supports virtual desktops like every other operating system for the past 2 decades. That's not that bad, okay? So honestly, it's not that bad because virtual desktops are a built-in functionality of the operating system and has been there since 1993 in NT as well. It was originally only implemented by a tool from sysinternals called virtual desktops that you could actually start using it. It's just not been allowed to be used, but it's been there since forever, as long as it comes to NT. Good trivia. What I usually ask my students all the time when I teach Windows internals is that when you log on to Windows machine, doesn't matter if it's NT 3.1 or if it's a newer one. Let's keep it to date a bit. So the most used operating system currently is Windows 7. So if you log on to Windows 7, how many desktops do you have? Any guesses? Shout out loud. 2? 3? 3? 3 is correct. 2 is incorrect. 2 is the most common answer. I'm actually quite proud of you that some of you said 3. So most people know that there's a desktop and there's a secure desktop. Why did I say you can go back to NT 3.1 is the fact that there was a secure desktop in NT 3.1 as well. That's the one you see when you press Ctrl-Alt-Delete, also known as security dialog. That's your second desktop. So your interactive desktop, your second desktop is the secure desktop, and the third one is the screensaver. Screensaver always secures a third virtual desktop in Windows. So 3 desktops for every session that you log on. So it's nothing amazing. Running applications in Windows, think about it. That's the second biggest applause that Microsoft gets when you ask people what's the best thing about Windows 10. Most people say start menu, and the second biggest amount of feedback comes from this, that you can run applications in Windows. I'm not sure how many people recall what the product itself is called. The name kind of implies that you could run stuff in Windows. It's amazing that you can do it after 2 decades, reinvent this ability to run things in Windows. Of course, they're talking about the universal apps. A transparent command prompt. Got to be kidding me. When Windows 10 came around, Joe Belfiore announced Windows 10, and he made a mistake. So he read the script wrong. The script actually said that you IT pro people, we know that we forgot you with Windows 8 and 8.1. We were kind of focused on developers and consumers, but we didn't think about you. So now with Windows 10, we wanna keep you in mind. And that's why we are introducing a transparent command prompt. And like the crowd went silent. Like the sentence before was, this is the last Windows ever. And the next sentence says, the coolest thing is a transparent command prompt. Awesome. That's nice. So he missed the script. The script told him to talk about another thing, and that's the console host. So let's get back to that in a second. But of course, a company that since 2006 been focused on getting IT pros to change from command prompt to PowerShell, when their second highest executive says that we are bringing a transparent command prompt, that's just ridiculous, okay? So, what's really new? First of all, let's get this straight. Where should you be? Before we start talking about Windows 10. Should you be on Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10? Let's get this sorted out first. So first of all, if any of your customer is saying that they are not going to Windows 10, because I'm quite sure you've got those and plenty of those, remember they're lying. So unless they're going to Linux, which would be, although it's Finnish, awesome, It's a really ridiculous option for a desktop operating system, okay? Not to servers, but desktops. So if they're not going to Linux or Mac, they're lying. Depends on the sense of humor of your customer if you can say it straight to their face that they're lying or not. I would. They're going to Windows 10. Don't know what build they're going to, but they are going to Windows 10 at some point anyway. If Microsoft sticks to the plan that it's the last Windows ever, they are going to go to Windows 10. Now, Windows 7 is fine. Remember, although you don't have to accept everything Microsoft says, you should remember that it's a lot easier for your life if you try to like at least a bit of the same things that Microsoft likes. So Windows 7 is a good option. If you're in Windows 7, you're fine for a few years. So up to 2020 at least, you're good. That's how long Windows 7 support is. Windows 7 has more than 50% market share, so there's no way Microsoft can get rid of Windows 7, and they don't want to. Windows 7 is fine. Windows 8, you can't be on Windows 8 because Windows 8 is out of support. Support ended 2 months ago. So Windows 8.1 is not and has never been a voluntary upgrade. It's a mandatory upgrade. So you can't be on 8 because it's out of support, and you shouldn't be on 8.1 because you'll be smoked out anyway. If you're on 8.1, get rid of it. That's my honest, true-to-heart advice to any of you that you're running it. Get rid of it now. Windows 8.1 is not out of support until 2023. That sounds good, but the thing is that you will be smoked out anyway. There are good examples of this. So, for example, Microsoft seems to think that there's something wrong with OneDrive. I don't understand how they figured that out. They seem to have some issues with sync engine and some problems with syncing stuff. Don't understand. Never seen those. So now they decided to bring out a new client, and they started rolling it out last year. This one I got on the 8th of October, and we got it right before the end of the year. We got the official one out. And when Microsoft was asked what operating system versions does OneDrive's new sync client support, Microsoft replied 7, 8, and 10. So the guy who was doing the interview asked that, just to make sure, you do mean 8 and 8.1? No. Now, after tens of thousands of people complaining about it, now they finally admitted that, okay, in the end of the first quarter of 2016, we will build a version for 8.1 as well. But that just tells you the story. They can support 8. It supports 8. That's fine because it's out of support. But they won't build anything new for 8.1 because that would make you think that you could use 8.1. They're just smoking you out. You can stick to 8.1 if you want, but the thing is that you're just not going to get any cool stuff that all your customers with the old freaking Windows 7 do. So go for 7 or 10. Stick to 7 or go to 10, but skip 8.1. Microsoft doesn't like it, you shouldn't either, okay? As sad as that sounds, you should just make your life a bit easier. Do you have Windows RT? Hope you don't. That's dead now. Now it's officially dead because Microsoft said when they announced Windows 10 that we will give a limited amount of features to Windows RT as well. So we are committed to supporting this Windows RT. Yeah, sure. So that's all you got. That's the KP article, and that's the hotfix you can get for Windows RT. It adds you the start menu, and that's all. It's the last thing Windows RT will get. So now it's officially dead. That's Microsoft keeping their promise. They will give a limited set of features from Windows 10 to Windows RT. That's it. Now you got it. Bye-bye. Upgrade is recommended. So why I'm having this here is that you should think about this a bit. This will change the way you work. Because now, for the first time in Microsoft's history, Microsoft says that for enterprises, the recommended way of deploying operating systems is to do an in-place upgrade. They've never said that before. They've never been pushing for it before because they've always said that you're better off if you reinstall and do a full reinstall, clean up the hard drives, do a reformat and stuff like that, you will get a better performing operating system rather than doing an in-place upgrade. So this time they're actually telling you that you should do the opposite. You should only use in-place upgrade. Why? It's part of a bigger picture. So the process itself is not important for Microsoft to say that you should upgrade from 7 to 10 with an in-place upgrade. That's not important at all. It's nice that it works, even to the extent that it does. But the thing is that it's part of a really, really bigger picture, which is the fact that they need to get this working because they need you to do a reinstall of an operating system for maybe 4 times a year. That's the part where it needs to work. Now you can't do a fresh reinstall 4 times a year. Honestly, you can't. You know how much it is now. It takes like 5 to 6 years to roll out a new operating system version usually. That's average, so you can't do it 4 times a year without a working in-place upgrade. Okay? Some things relate to the same thing here. So one is home users forced to use Windows Update. I get this on Twitter all the time. People are asking me all the time about why do Windows 10 Home Editions force you to use Windows Update? Even to the ridiculous extent where you update a NVIDIA driver to get your Windows working, but now NVIDIA drivers on their website have an older version number than the one that's posted on Windows Update, which is not working. So when you first upgrade to a working display adapter driver, everything's fine, but when the next Windows Update cycle comes along, your computer blue screens again. If you fix it by reinstalling, it'll take a few weeks and it's broken again. You can't. I posted this on my Twitter feed on how to block this from happening, but it needs tweaking, so it's not a thing that a normal home user would be able to do without instructions. So they're forced to use Windows Update. So why is that? It's not just to bug people. Honestly, there is a bigger picture here as well. And the bigger picture here behind this decision is the fact that they want you to be able to trust bring your own device scenarios more. Because your biggest and my biggest complaint about bring your own device, which Microsoft happens to like as an idea, what we are complaining about is the fact that we cannot make sure that those devices coming into our secure environments are up to date. So this is part of the plan. Let's force everyone outside of enterprises to keep them updated so that you would trust them at least a bit more, because they don't get to choose if they're up to date or not. Also, Windows Update for Business. Windows Update for Business sounded like a really big thing. We can see it in action in a second. Windows Update for Business is kind of, called it a WSUS Lite. So you can get a WSUS without infrastructure. Why would Microsoft want you to use it? Well, of course, that might sound like a nice service for you, that you don't have to have the infrastructure needed for WSUS. But that's not the cake here. The cake here is that Microsoft needs the telemetry information of whether you are succeeding with your upgrades or not. The problem with WSUS is that every company that uses WSUS or SCCM does not report to Microsoft at all if you're succeeding or not in your updates or upgrades. Now when they start moving from this old way of installing a new operating system every 6 years to this part where they're starting to roll out new builds maybe 4 times a year, they need to know if it works or not. They can't keep this thing running unless they get a lot more telemetry information than what they have now. So with this, those guys that used to use WSUS would be happy with this Windows Update for Business, and then they get the reporting data. So when a new build goes out, they know now people are not succeeding with this, it's failing all over the world, let's stop and not give it to people anymore. Okay? So that's also a bigger picture. Upgrade settings. There are 2 things that kind of amazed me. Microsoft is very good in bringing out these new things with Windows 10, as they're not showing you actual demonstrations but talking about new stuff. So, for example, Windows was divided into different branches. You can get a long-term servicing branch. so you don't have to update at all if you don't want to. Long-time servicing branch is a different ISO, so you have to download a separate version of Windows, install that. Microsoft doesn't support everything on it, so they don't support universal apps, not all of them at least. That's fine for Edge. Honestly, I'm not that worried about missing Edge. I don't miss Edge, actually. So I'm fine with that. And I honestly do think it's good decision, because if you don't update your operating system, you can't do it for your web browser. Because Windows 10 long-time servicing branch is supported for the next 10 years. You can't say, I will have a non-updated web browser for the next 10 years. That's freaking insane. So I respect it that it's not there. Honestly, what bugs me the most is the fact that there's no calculator. I might be old-fashioned, but I need the freaking calculator in my Windows quite often. They change it from the old desktop app to a universal app, and it's not supported on long-time servicing branch. Apparently, there are so big security issues with the calculator. Can't support it for the next 10 years. Wow. Anyway, long-time servicing branch you can use for 10 years. If you go for the other two, the one we are using is the normal current branch. That's what gets updated maybe 4 times a year. We'll see. And then they announced what's known as the current branch for business. Current branch for business, where you can take a little bit more time in testing. You don't have to update all the time. Now, as long-time servicing branch is a different ISO you download, current branch for business ended up being, let's see it from a real Windows 10. It ended up being this checkbox here. That's your current branch for business, okay? That's all it is. Now, that will defer them for a few months. That's the topic for other sessions. I'm not going to steal their stuff from it. The other one that they announced, if that's not enough for you, that one checkbox, they announced a Windows Update for Business. And when everyone was waiting for Windows Update for Business, everyone was waiting like, give us an address finally where we can log on. Because it's a web service, so you need to log on somewhere to have an administration portal that you can use. So where do I control this cool new Microsoft hosted Windows Update for Business? And Windows Update for Business ended up being this one group policy setting. Huge infrastructure Microsoft put into it. So that's the only thing. That's what's known as Windows Update for Business. It's one single group policy setting that tells you how you want to deploy your updates in your company. If you want to defer them, if you don't want to do them all, if you want to stop temporarily. Because it's group policy based, that means you can group computers into different groups. So that's what Microsoft promised. Windows Update for Business will support grouping of computers. Wow, group policy supports grouping of computers, so yes. So don't look for a login portal for Windows Update for Business. Provision packages. You really want this to work, provision packages. Here's an example of what a provision package could do. That's a Windows 10 out-of-the-box experience. So you get this from the store, you get a OEM-built Windows, and now instead of reinstalling it, Microsoft wants you to be able to provision it so it will be transformed into an enterprise version. I install this Surface Book here. By the way, if you really want to buy a Surface Book, before you buy a Surface Book, make sure you read my blog. The latest addition to my blog is called Review 2 of Surface Book, The Honeymoon is Over. That name might tell you something about it. So anyway, my Surface Book, the good thing about it was that I actually usually, when I install my own computer, the problem is that I take care of my end users having a fully automated installation. I'm really picky on this. Our employees need to be in a situation when we can reinstall a computer and they can start instantly working with it. And I'm really picky on it. But when it comes to my own computer, it's like a horror story. It's like when I need to change my own computer, it used to take me like 1 or 2 days to tweak my settings like I want them to be. Not like my customers have, but like what I want them to be. Like my Snagit, my Camtasia, my microphone recording software, blah, 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 blah. And it took my freaking 2 days to get it working, okay? Surface Book, 2 hours. Changing from a Fujitsu computer that I had here last year, 2 hours. Because upgrading to enterprise is just changing a product key, nothing else. And also most of my settings are up in the cloud somewhere. So I'm happy with this change, honestly. It made my life a lot easier. Now you want this to work when you get to Windows Mobile. Now everyone uses Windows Mobile, I'm quite sure, especially coming from Finland. I hope everyone uses Windows Mobile. We're already up to 2% of the market share. Amazing. So now Windows Mobile for the first time is also available as Windows Mobile Enterprise. So there's a new version. There's a company enterprise version you can install on your phone. Do you really want to have your end users on top of their computers coming to you with their mobile phones saying, could you re-image this? I don't even know what that means. So you want these things to work. You need that device to be able to be transformed into an enterprise version. But it's also nice for your computers. Here it might mean that you get a computer from the OEM and there's a new trick in the UBI, so the out-of-the-box experience. If you hit the shift, I'm always hitting the shift key. Hit the Windows key 5 times here. It'll actually ask you, do you want to set up the device? And now you can give it a provision package from a USB key, and it'll transform it instead of reinstalling it. This can be done with the new ADK. That's not my cup of tea here. There's other better people to tell you about this stuff. But I really think it can change the way we work with computers, because it'll allow you to do what's known as choose your own computer easier. It might get you some relaxation time instead of fighting with device driver packages, because that's mainly what's happening. You get a new device to your environment, someone needs to take care of creating device driver packages for SCCM or MDT. Instead of when you transform it to an enterprise version, you don't touch the drivers. That would give you quite a lot of ease on that burden. Okay? Fixed con host. That's the important message here. They didn't fix the command prompt. That's what Joe Belfiore missed in the script. He was supposed to say that you have a transparent console host, almost there, but with a huge difference. You don't want to have a transparent command prompt. I don't even want to have a transparent PowerShell. But I already have developers who say it's awesome because they can have a Windows TechNet Script Center, for example, in the background, have a floating command prompt PowerShell on top of it and see through. Wow. Anyway, that's not the topic here. The topic is that they needed to make you like PowerShell more. That's what they were trying to do. But it ended up sounding really bad. So what are we talking about here really is the fact that if I'm running, for example, here I have a command prompt and I have a PowerShell. What I hear all the time from from people I meet, they will tell me that, have you actually seen that there's not so much difference here? If you go like here, these properties, for example, that they put into PowerShell, these options here, they're like almost identical to these here. It's like, that's kind of weird if they would not be identical, because they're not just almost the same, they're the freaking same binary. So it should be the same ones and zeros. It's like, in computer world, you know, there's nothing between one and a zero. So it must be exactly the same, or it's not the same. It's not almost the same. It's ones and zeros. So what they try to, of course, do is give you these cool things like Control-C, Control-V, line wrapping, stuff like that, but they want you to have it in PowerShell. And that would have been a really good sales pitch, saying that we like you IT pros, we want you to have an easier job with PowerShell than you did with the old command prompt thingy we had. But no, instead the guy goes out and says, we're going to give you a transparent command prompt. Like, what? Is that all in Windows 10? Nothing else. So basically that means that you can, if you do this, PowerShell, there's no difference between this and this. They're the same. Different background color. Or, even better, you could do this, and your colleagues think you're super cool and good with PowerShell. Don't take this as the only tip from this session, please. Oh, I always use PowerShell now, all the time. Biometrics, honestly important, no more passwords, okay? We do want Windows to work without passwords because it's horrifying how bad the situation is with different kinds of password. I could say, I'm not saying that I will be able to tell you which password manager, for example, on the internet is the best one, but I will tell you that you need one. You cannot live without a password manager. That sometimes, like a few years ago, things were still like, yeah, some people use it, but honestly, like, it's better for me if I just have these rules in my head and try to figure out how to remember the passwords and stuff like that. No, stop it. It's just ridiculous. Use a good password manager. So, the same thing with Windows. We got to get rid of this. Some of you were here yesterday. Some of you were here last year. I just bought my new Fujitsu computer before I came here, and I showed you how much I love the new biometrics on it, because it had Windows 8.1 with fingerprint detection. I actually, Surface Book, the only thing I don't like about it is that it doesn't have a fingerprint detector, fingerprint reader. I bought one, an external one, but what I've been struggling with is the fact that biometrics have been for your fingers, but now Windows 10 likes you to use your face as well. Now we come to a certain problem here for me, because I'm a guy who has been, and my main income comes from consulting companies on how to get rid of admin rights. That means that I need to always have 2 different user accounts. With fingerprint detector, it was very easy, because that meant that I always had my limited user, and then I had my admin finger. Now, that was fun. It wasn't even aimed as a joke, because that's how I've done it for years. It's just my first enrolled finger is this, and the second one is this. Sorry for my bad manners. So, honestly, but it's very easy, because when I need to run as, I just use my admin finger, and someone comes to me and asks, could you please help us install the software to our computer? Yeah, you just need this. They go away, and I'm... it just makes my life easier in many ways. Now, I did this at Ignite, and people at Ignite said that, because I wasn't sure how it would work. I have no idea how the US sense of humor is, so you know how I'm even now nervous showing my middle finger to you guys, girls, but the thing is that in US, like doing it for 2,500 people and you have to show your finger to them, I could get kicked out of the conference, you know. So that was a bit scary. Now it ended up being very good a joke and worked fine, and then they said on their evals, there was one perfect evaluation. The guy said that we have already booked for the next year's Ignite, because if for nothing else we'll be there to see how Mr. Laiho does this with the facial detection. And someone else had written that we want to see that crazy Finn standing on his hands and showing his ass to the camera. That would be cool. Sadly, I don't know how to stand on my hands, so it's a bit hard. Not all OEMs get this idea of these cool new cameras. So this does require a RealSense 3D camera. It has an RGB camera, an infrared camera, and a depth camera, okay? So it has the 3D cam as well. So you need these to work with this facial detection. So it doesn't work on all computers. Some OEMs I see that didn't really read Microsoft provides OEMs with information, and we're going to use this in Windows 10. You should build devices for us. But they don't apparently read this because three biggest manufacturers actually have these models out with laptops that have this facial detection camera on the back side of the screen. It's like, I saw it at a Microsoft store. I was like, oh my God, you missed the point. It's not supposed to be there. It's like, I wanna log on to my computer like a... Okay, now we get to the problematic part. So let's see if we can get this sorted out. First of all, have to be very quick. Sometimes this Windows Hello isn't that cool because it's gonna log me in instantly if it sees me. It uses Skylake processor. So if you have a Skylake 6th generation i processor from Intel, then that works a lot faster with this Windows Hello. It is built for Skylake, okay? So Skylake works faster. With this one, it has a Skylake, so it's very fast. So now my problem is that whenever I come in front of my computer, I actually have to be very quick with my hand to block the camera. It happened yesterday like 2 times. I was at the airport lounge, and I was trying to go and fetch something to drink. The problem is I lock my computer as always, but then I'm here just for a second, and it knows who I am, and then I leave. And then I come back, and I'm like, ooh, shit. So it's really hard to keep it locked. You have to have a Band-Aid. You know, like security people used to have it so they're not spied on. So they put a Band-Aid on the camera so they are not spied on. Now you have to have one so you're not locked on all the time, okay? So... yeah, that's why they put it on the backside. Yeah, exactly. All right. So this is a bit harder for me. Normally, if it's a personal computer, it might not be an issue. But for me, it's the thing that I need a demo account as well. Sometimes I use my own account with my email, but I'm demoing stuff to you. I need a demo account. So I honestly have to have many accounts. I need a normal account. I need a demo account. I need an admin account. So now... if I'm logging on like this, that's me, and I'm using my own account here because I wanted to show this demo. Now the problem comes when I need to do what I always did before, so CMD Control-Shift-Enter. That's where we have the problem, because this is where I used my middle finger. Now I call this the Homer Simpson logon. So now what I do nowadays, I have to be very quick with this, but I have to do this, what Homer Simpson does. So now I'm an admin, okay? So, I know, I've tried many things. The coolest one I got working was this. But you know how weird that looks in an airport lounge when you have people sitting next to you and you're all... Now this one looks bad, but I can at least be like... it's Windows, you know. So a little bit easier, but you can figure out stuff. I've tried many things. It needs to see at least one eye. This one seems to be the most reliable one. This one works like you have to be really accurate that it's in the right spot of your eyebrow. So it's really hard to get correct in a demo like this where you're a bit nervous and stuff like that. So this one works best. Okay, I'm trying to do it with I have these Finnish järjestelmävalvoja caps that I gave people, these administrator caps. I try to make it work so for Ignite that when you need admin rights, you would put my cap on and then it would lock you in. That would be super cool, but it's not really easy to get working. So this one is actually usable, but it does look a bit funny. These biometrics cannot be cheated that well, so it's using infrared. If you show it a selfie of you, it won't work because it needs depth information and it needs heat information. Neither one are provided by a static picture. So there's no 3D information, there's no heat information, okay? Temperature variations. It works very well. One out of 100,000 is the amount of false positives that it gets. So compared to many things like fingerprints, that actually is very good. So that was Windows Hello. That's what I looked like one morning. That horrified me. You know when you had a bad day? You wake up in the morning and look at the mirror and like, oh my God, I look horrible. But this, I don't know what happened. Actually, I know what happened. My Skype for Business stole those 2 cameras. So my Skype for Business stole the RGB cam because they're seen as different cameras for Device Manager. So the Link or Skype for Business stole my RGB cam and my infrared cam. So when I went to set up my facial detection, it only had this depth information anymore. So that's why I look like quite bad. That's the horrible hangover picture. I still don't know what this is up here. Someone say it's my aura. I think it's the cloud. I've always been wondering, where is my OneDrive? But that's why it's there. Yeah, your Windows settings come down from. Okay, new store, universal apps. Honestly, Microsoft is trying to make Windows more sexy, giving you universal apps. Yesterday morning, I flew into Oslo. I started with a really fun occasion at the Finnair lounge at Helsinki. So I woke up at 4, left to the airport, went to the airport lounge, and at 6, there were people coming in to work at a Microsoft Lumia presentation desk. Do I have a picture? I thought I might. Actually, I don't. Okay. So I had some fun because they were like showing what Windows 10 can do on phones, and I pretended, of course, not knowing anything about Windows 10. So I just went there as a normal customer and had them show me how these new features in Windows 10 work. And one thing which is very cool is that you can actually run the same apps on the phone, on the tablet, on the desktop, and on the Xbox. Now, some people might laugh about the Xbox, but you have to remember, especially if you saw the keynote and think about how the world changes and how rapidly things change, you honestly want your kids to like Windows apps. That's the only way to kind of make sure that there would be a future for Windows apps. Otherwise, they've lost the game if they don't get the kids to like them. If I go to my kids, I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. 2-year-old knows how to use Skype, but basically nothing else. The 6-year-old is awesome because she already asked me if she could get her own domain. So she produces videos for YouTube, plays with dolls and videos playing with those dolls and builds videos for YouTube. But her friends at the kindergarten can't find those videos because YouTube gives users these ridiculous names for the user. So random names. So now she needs a domain for her kindergarten friends to find the videos she's produced on YouTube. 6 years old. I'm in deep, deep, deep trouble. Anyway, now, if I tell her that you need to have a phone, she's going to school and she needs a phone. Okay? So now, my wife needs to use a Windows phone. She would like to have an iPhone, but she needs to use a Windows phone because I told her that I will not support the phone unless it's a Windows phone. I can't do that for my kids, honestly. What if I tell them that you need to use this Lumia 550, cool new Windows 10? It's like, does it run Angry Birds 3? No, I won't take it. It has nothing to do with the phone. It's all about the apps. If the app doesn't work that your friends use, your phone sucks. It's very easy. So now, I can't tell a dev, if I meet a developer, I can tell them that you should build apps for Windows, because now the same Windows application that you built for your desktop can be run on these Windows phones. You'll be rich. How many people were using those? Me, my wife, and 2 others. So, like 2% market share. There's nothing sexy about that. You can't tell someone you should build an app for Windows because it works on the phone as well. Xbox, totally different thing. My godson just turned 18. I asked him, what kind of console would you like to have? PlayStation 4 or Xbox? Xbox, absolutely. Better games. I like the Kinect. Xbox is not losing to PlayStation 4 because of bad branding or stuff like that. That's actually cool and sexy. So to get a developer to respect the fact that he could actually get the same application to work in every living room that's running Xbox, now that does matter. That's almost 50% of people, not 2% of the market share. So that's the bigger picture. Now, while we are at it, they're trying to fix things by creating these weird emulations to get iOS apps to work on Windows Phone, get Android apps to work on Windows Phone. There are 2 different projects. Every second month they're on. Every second month they say they just discontinued the project. Then they started again. I don't know. The iOS one is doing better. The Android one is currently again shut down. But this will be like a temporary fix, and the bigger picture here is trying to make Windows apps more sexy. Okay? Azure AD, and on top of Azure AD, also MDM. I have these listed here because I would like you to keep this in mind, that again, like I started with by saying that you shouldn't run Windows 8.1, you should not hate MDM. Go to Redmond. At the Microsoft campus, there's a building that has people working that work with centralized management. There's 2 guys working for group policy. 2. There's about 100 people working for MDM. That's their focus. 98 against 2. Count how many new group policy settings you've had for Windows 10. Exactly 201. Count MDM settings. There are thousands. That's Microsoft likes MDM. If you're thinking like, I will never use MDM, I'm just waiting to get things for group policy. People ask me all the time, like yesterday was the last time when someone asked me on Twitter, how do I set the how do I set DMA protection for BitLocker? It's available on MDM, but how do I set it with group policy? You can't. It doesn't exist. They haven't implemented it. You can only do it with MDM. The stuff you can only do with MDM. Why does Microsoft like MDM? Now, this is totally something which is weird, because this makes us look like the guys who are not willing to be open here. Because we're saying we want group policy, we don't like MDM. Group policy is proprietary technology, usable only with Active Directory. MDM, you can choose. Cisco, Microsoft, whatever you want. They want MDM because other people could use it as well. We like to stick to group policy because we know it. Okay? Keep in mind, MDM. That's the same as if you don't like PowerShell. It's a really bad career move. I used to hate PowerShell. There's in Windows 7 there were 100 commandlets in PowerShell, but 650 command line tools. So PowerShell loses 6-1. Windows 8.1, 650 command line tools and 1,800 PowerShell commandlets. So I lose 3-1. Windows 10, with all the server additions for Server 2016 from the AirSat tools, we're going to 6,000 commandlets. So I lose 10-1 to all my colleagues who like PowerShell. So that's the same thing. If you're running servers, if you're not interested in Windows 10 but Server 2016, remember, Microsoft doesn't like group policy for servers, they like DSC. So they want to have new techniques on how to use desired state configuration for servers. That's how they've decided to look at servers. Again, you don't have to like it, but accept that that's the emphasis of your provider on what they are making the tools for. MDM used to be for mobile devices only. Now it's built into Windows 10 desktops. So there are things you can't do with anything else but a mobile device management for your desktop PCs. There are things that can't be done. Now, hardware features, quite a lot of stuff. We talked about the first one. Wireless charging will be available and supported in Windows 10. Is actually already available, but not really that much implemented as actual devices. Intel has new technology to protect processes from each other. This SGE, which I can't go through right now, but there's a link to a PDF. USB 3.1 and the new USB Type-C are 2 different things. Keep that in mind. I get this all the time. People are buying new devices and then they come to me and say, I just bought this cool new device. You know, I got this USB interface that you can plug in either way, doesn't matter, and it does 10 gigs per second. No, it doesn't, it does 5. No, it's the type C. Yes, but it's 3.0. Two different things. You can have a connector, either one, the old one or the new one, and then you can have 3.0, which is 5 gigs per second, or 3.1, which is 10 gigs per second. But they can be mixed. So for example, Lenovo has a lot of devices that have 3.0 as the interface. The interface is type C. Looks like a new one, but it's the slow bus. Or you can be the other way. Fast bus, but then you actually, if you have a fast bus, you really do need this new interface as well. Thunderbolt 3, horrifying. We're living horrifying times. I have on my desktop something that I thought I would never ever have, which is a Dell XPS 13. Why I thought I would never ever have it is because it has Thunderbolt 3. And Thunderbolt 3 is the fastest ever bus to steal your BitLocker keys. And me as a security expert, it would be really silly for me to showcase a laptop on my table that has Thunderbolt, Firewire, PCI Express or stuff like that, because that's the best way of stealing my BitLocker keys. No security expert wants to have those. That's why I don't understand why security experts use MacBooks, because they have these buses always. Now, these can be protected with the brand new devices. So if you're looking for devices and you want them to be secure, you should be looking for this, IOMMU. You never find that acronym anywhere. It's implemented by Intel as VTD and AMD as AMD VI. Look for those. Those are the ones you can find. Because that's a I/O memory management unit. It does the same as a memory management unit has done for ages in a CPU, which is to map physical memory addresses to virtual memory addresses, but it does this for I/O devices. And this can actually block your DMA-enabled buses from reading your BitLocker keys. That's the only working solution of having a Thunderbolt 3 on your machine and still be protected against these memory attacks. So make sure you have an IOMMU. And that's supported by Windows 10 only, so you need Windows 10 as well for it to be protected. I skipped one slide, so the slide was this one, Skylake. There's tons of things that are implemented only in Skylake for Windows 10. So Intel 6th generation processors have very much been built Windows 10 in mind. Not that important, but if you think about your end users having Cortana, not that much of a problem for us usually here in Northern Europe. There's a thing called keyword spotter algorithm. This means that by default your Windows 10 needs to be quite awake to hear hello Cortana. So when you're at home and you talk to your computer and you're not being insane but you really want to do something with it, if you say hello Cortana, now Windows 10 needs to be quite awake to use the sound card to listen for this keyword. With Skylake, Windows outsources this listening to this hello Cortana to the Skylake processor itself. So Skylake processor keeps a minimum sleep state, or almost maximum sleep state actually, so it's almost sleeping totally, but it's only listening if someone says hello Cortana. That's not that important. There's actually very much important stuff in this. So one of the things I see the most is this one. Now I need resource monitor, which requires admin rights, so I have to be fast. Resource monitor is hiding. Here we go. If you look at the CPU here and you look at this maximum frequency, it's kind of at the top right now. It changes quite rapidly on computers that have Skylake. So if you look at your computer and you have a new Skylake processor, you can see that going like top, top, top all the time. If you have a Haswell or a Broadwell, 4th or 5th generation Intel, then you see it being quite stable and then sometimes changing quite stable, sometimes changing. It changes more with Skylake, which is actually now it's running so much stuff with Hyper-V, which makes this a bit worse demo because you can see that changing that much. What I'm aiming at here is the fact that a Skylake processor can take care of CPU time shifting. So what it can do is it can change the frequency of your CPU. With any other processor or before Windows 10, the operating system takes care of changing the speed of your CPU. And it can only be done in 30 milliseconds. It takes 30 milliseconds for your operating system to say to the CPU, please change. Skylake does it in 1 millisecond. So 30 times faster to change the speed of your CPU, which is very good for your power consumption. So that's good for your battery life at the end. Continuum. That's what I was aiming for. So Continuum is the thing that actually I think might make a change, might change how people work. I know it's a bit world healing still, but I think it might honestly be important. That you can actually take your mobile phone, plug it into an HDMI screen, and use all the same apps that you use on your phone, but with a bigger picture. Have a Bluetooth, or now it's actually wired currently, but you could have a wireless access point, wireless docking station for your phone as well. Now they're wired still, but that works only with a few new Lumias. So people are first thinking that this is for the people who buy the most expensive phones. So it's a geeky gadget. That's not what they're aiming for. They're aiming for it to work on the cheapest possible Lumias, so that people who can't afford to have anything else but a phone, not a tablet, laptop, PC like many of us do, but only affords to have one phone. Now that phone has more CPU capacity than we had in our computers less than 10 years ago. So why not use it? Now the problem is you can't use it with those screens and without keyboards and mouse and stuff like that. So this would honestly could make this could actually matter. To get people who can't afford to have anything but phone, have a place where they can just plug in their phone, use their keyboard and mouse, big screen. They were showing it to me. This is the picture from the airport yesterday morning. So what I was trying there, why I actually even wanted to go there, because I've seen it many times. The reason why I went there to try it out, because they had them there, was the reason that Microsoft about a month ago came out with the new version of Remote Desktop. And that is now a universal app that works with Continuum. So instantly the geek in me wanted to go there on a phone, open up Remote Desktop to my own server back home on a big HDMI monitor. And awesome, honestly. Small phone, I'm doing everything related to my server management. I loved it. But that's the geeky stuff. That's not healing the world stuff. Virtual memory, I'm not going to go into this. This is a teaser. There's actually things below the surface of Windows that have changed dramatically. Virtual memory, things called device card, credential card, getting rid of bash to hash, stuff like this. Hyper-V inside of Hyper-V. These are things that actually matter but are way below the surface of Windows. And that's actually the thing that I'm going to talk about on my session this afternoon, which is called Windows 10 Internals. So if you're interested in more technical stuff on how the OS actually has changed without these things on the surface, then you should definitely go to that session. Few minor details. We have 2 minutes left, so memory dumps. Finally, we have a memory dump for Windows 10 that is actually useful. We can get an active memory dump. What are these? For those of you working with troubleshooting, this is a very important change. And for you working with Microsoft support, Premier Support Services, this is a very important change. Might sound a bit geeky, but it's very important. So what's happening here? Windows 8.1, complete memory dump from a machine with 64 gigs of memory. If you're only using 1 gig of memory, will result in a 64 gig dump file. Because Windows complete memory dumps that have all the contents of your memory have also the empty pages in your memory. Windows 10 and Server 2016 is the first one that supports active memory dumps, which means that only active content of your memory is actually dumped. So even if you have a complete memory dump, if you're only using 2 gigs, you will only have 2 gig memory dump. Also, they got rid of one partition, which is awesome. Windows 10 can now be fixed from the WinSXS folder, meaning that if you reset your machine, you don't need a recovery image. You can also reset it to the state with the newest hotfixes in it if you want. So that actually might make a change because it will be easier to reset these. It's easier for you guys playing with SCCM, MDT. Whenever we get rid of partitions, we're happy. The less partitions, the better. So those are minor things. But this is stuff below the surface, and I'll get back to that on my second session. I've got stuff on the web. I have my own video training site. I'm going on Pluralsight in a few months. I have a deadline at the end of this month, so hopefully in a few months I have my first course there. There's my websites, newsletters, Twitter feeds. With this, thank you.